Hello, everyone. I am Anne Kampf. Welcome, and thank you for joining the second session of the series Expat Life in Vienna, Austria, Your Essential Guide. All my live sessions that I host are independent pro bono initiatives in my personal capacity, and they are created as spaces for learning, connection, and thoughtful exchange. Last time, in the first session of the series, we looked at the first 90 days not as a checklist, but as a system. And one thing became very clear. Most people do not struggle because they lack information. They struggle because they misread how the system responds to them, which leads to something uncomfortable. We concluded you can do the right things and still get the wrong outcome. So, this is not about trying harder. It's about where flexibility is assumed but doesn't actually exist. We'll look today at this across three layers: how behavior is read socially, how choices are constrained legally, and how decisions quietly become long term commitments, not separately, but the way they show up in real life. In today's session, Living and Integrating, we'll move across culture, administration, and work. Why? Because in real life, these don't sit in silos. As always, please bring your questions in the LinkedIn comments section. We will follow them in real time. Today, I am joined again by the same experts as last time, who each sees this from a different angle. Nikolina Sarić works directly with international as they arrive, helping them make sense of cultural signals that are often easy to misread. Benjamin Wolf operates at the administrative interface where behavior translates into process and small choices start to matter structurally. And Christopher Kampner. He sees the longer horizon when early decisions show up later in careers, finances, and stability. I will now invite all of them here. Nikolina, Benjamin, Christopher, welcome.
Thank you, Anne. Hi, everyone. Excited
Hello.
to be here.
Hi, hello.
Hi. Hi. Happy to be here.
Nice to have you here again. So let's start where this usually begins. Not when something breaks, but much, much earlier, in the first days after arrival, when nothing looks dramatic. You register your address, you send an email, you walk into an office and ask questions. Everything feels reasonable. And yet, this is exactly where things start to shift. Not because of what you do, but because of how it is read. And Nikolina, I will address the next question to you because you see people right at that moment when they arrive. So, what is the first behavior that makes Austria harder for expats than it needs to be?
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Really, that's a great question. Well, in my work supporting internationals right after their arrival in Austria, in Vienna, I often see that the biggest challenge is not the bureaucracy itself, but it's a lack of clarity about expectations. Expectations and many unwritten rules of everyday life and workplace life. And as Austria has a strong system and structures, which is real advantage, but for newcomers, it can feel difficult when processes are not explained proactively and communication feels formal or people are expected to just know how things work. So, and many internationals after arriving, they are highly motivated and highly qualified, and they wanted to understand and knowing the system. But what really they need in the first weeks, or maybe even before relocation, is orientation, then cultural context, and of course, welcoming environment that helps them understand administrative systems and workplace expectations quickly as they want to thrive and perform and not just survive the system. So called it, they need to put the cultural lens to understand the context and behavior in a new country they're moving to.
Right. What often surprises people is this: what feels like a small social moment doesn't stay social. It becomes a record, a missing document, an unclear request, a step done in the wrong order. So, Benjamin, when people behave that way early on, how does it show up later in the administrative process on platforms like My Paperwork, AI, for example?
Well, for the person themselves, of course, it leads to frustration, right? They think they did everything correctly, but then suddenly some requests pop up. They really don't know what's going on. They don't get what they were supposed to be getting, be it a permit or certain, money or whatever. And that's super frustrating because you think you did everything correctly, but it's not correct. So what we do in My Paperwork, we call it dynamic reminders or notifiers and so on. We basically build a system where, everything that you share and that you upload is there. But since we built journeys of what you should do, all the steps, we tick the boxes and we remind you regularly, but we don't do it, too crazily. But, if it's a couple of months ago, we just remind you one a month. If it's like 6 weeks ago, we remind you every week. If it's only 2 weeks ago, we remind you maybe every 3 days. And if you don't know how to do something, we give you an explainer. We offer you to chat with us or to book a call. And what we often do is this, what we call buddy service. We go with you to the appointment because we simply see that this solves so many problems. Like basically, and I think, that's also partly what Nikolina does in her coaching and so on. If you can kind of catch these issues early on, you save so much work later, which is just spending on fixing things and explaining things which could have been done correctly from the outset. So we really try to empower our users and everyone coming here to do it correctly themselves to a very high degree. And then for the last 5%, we can come in and we can assist them.
Great. Christopher, we passed those moments that we discussed with Nikolina and Benjamin. A few months or a year later, it shows up something somewhere completely different. In a delayed salary, a tax issue, a contract that doesn't quite work the way it should. When you meet clients after a year or two, where do you see the cost of those early misreads financially or career-wise?
What we see a lot with prospects and clients as well, that they start very late thinking about financial stuff, thinking about investing and say, I will do it later. But the later is not like weeks later, months later, it is more years later. And that has an immense effect then on the long term. So especially we have a lot of prospects with quite good earning, and they say, yeah, but I need to settle down first. Let's talk in a half year. Then half year later we meet again, and they say, let's wait a little bit. And yeah, the time is going past, and time is here really money, and you can't really get that back. So that is, I see, a huge issue, and that is what have to be more in the mindset of the people, that losing here some years for thinking about financial investing has a long term a very big impact. And at the end, like we see with some prospects, they have like a very good income. The income is also increasing, but they don't think too much about investing, because when they earn more, they also have a better lifestyle. They go more on travel, more go in better restaurants. And then the problem is when they retire later on, they see money is missing. And as our pension system, especially for expats, they are not earning as much as, for example, somebody from Austria, because they have not put so much money in the system. And then they feel it later. And that is like a real big issue, where we try to explain that in advance, that now is the time to think about it. And now is the time also to act about it. And yeah, that is a big point. And also we need here to convince people to act now and don't say, I will do it later, because the effects very hard to change it afterwards.
If I may say one thing, I find your point really interesting about this pension, how much you paid in, because we recently talked to someone. He's a British citizen. He's been in Austria for 20 years. He's been self-employed, paid taxes, but he actually doesn't know what the system owes him. Like, he was surprised, for example, that he's not insured for unemployment because you need to opt in. And then he didn't really know, will he get a pension or not? So there's a lot of, like, people simply don't know. I mean, even Austrians often don't know. They just assume it will be all right. But obviously, if you move to a different country, different rules apply to you, and a lot of the systems set up for Austrians will not immediately catch you. So you simply need to put some effort into understanding how to set it up well for yourself, also financially, right?
And here, especially what you mentioned, Benjamin, a lot of Austrian people don't really know what they will receive as a pension. And for an expat, they are not thinking about that. They have a lot of other stuff to do and to think about. But it is essential, and the time is coming. And when you just say, I do it later, then you only have the effect and you cannot react anymore. And there's so small things when you know you need, for example, 15 years in Austria to pay in the system that you are allowed to receive a pension. If you only have like 14 years, you will not receive a pension if you have not worked in other countries where there is a pension agreement. And that are such small things which have a huge impact then. And therefore, it's really important to get this information, to think about that, or get to the right people who have the knowledge and that they help you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Nikolina, if you want to add something, please.
Yeah, I wanted to also confirm from that expat side, immigrant side, really people don't think nowadays as on a pension and the system, but it is very important to get informed very early on, just to know what your options are. And of course, we have here experts who can help you get a broader picture of your situation. I believe people in home countries, as you said, Austrians, maybe you don't know, or maybe you do, what kind of pension system it is, how's it going to be in the future. But also hearing a lot from my colleagues and friends that pension is still not a topic in their discussions.
Yeah,
but
it's not. It's not very clear. It's a topic that the three of you are right. It's not very clear, and people are not thinking at it. Because either they are still young, so this isn't a topic yet, or because they are in their 30s, 40s, they have small kids and they concentrate more on the kids than on the future related to pension. And there's another aspect that you, Chris, mentioned, not only about the years that you have to have in Austria, those 15 years, or accumulated at least 15 years also from other countries in which the expats worked. Most of the expats are project-based. And they worked, for example, on other continents, on the African continent or in the States. And it is a big question, and the steps are not clear. How will they sum up all those years if they decide to leave or to retire in Austria? There are a lot of topics or questions related to the pension topic. And if you miss one of the steps that you have to do at the beginning, as we mentioned in our previous session, it becomes harder at the moment where you have to apply for the pension to get all those informations, from the past. Do you have any example to share related to this topic? I know we are talking today about living and integrated, and we will have a dedicated session on income and pension. But still, I think that an example will be welcome for the audience.
I can start just very, very quickly. Maybe then Benjamin, you also have something on that. That is what we do, like in the second step with our clients. We look really in the system. Where have you worked? In which countries have you worked? How much you have contributed to the pension over there? Then is there a pension agreement with Austria? And then we calculate how many years do you need to work here that you are allowed to receive a pension. And also to see how much would that be approximately. Also to have this number to see, okay, I get a pension from the United States, I get something from Germany and from Austria, calculating that together. And then at the end, we see, okay, when you retire with 65, you will receive 1,800 euro net per month. but your last salary will be around like 5,000 euros maybe.
Yeah.
So there is a huge gap. And that is what we try to fulfill now, to don't get this big gap, and also to understand where you receive what and how to get that. That's from our side how we are dealing here with that.
That's very important, and I know that also Nikolina and Benjamin, you are also advising the experts with whom you enter in contact, because I attended some of your events, Nikolina, and we talked about this. It's a very important topic, which leads me to a question that I would like to ask all of you. What does Austria reward more in the beginning? Effort or predictability?
That's a great question. You want to start, Nikolina?
No, sorry. Yeah, you can, if you want, you can start, but I want to add something, definitely.
Okay. So I think for all the bureaucratic procedures or anything you need to do, it's for sure predictability. Predictability in the sense that you should also make clear, your effort, that you want to get it right and so on. So that is important and it helps. But basically, it needs to be correct. This is very, it needs to be correct. Everything needs to be there. And then if you give it this extra, hey, I really want to get this right, please help me, please advise me, then it goes further. I guess later on, once everything is set up, effort becomes more important, and then you can actually go much further, also in different institutions or whatever, or networking and so on. But the setup needs to be correct. That would at least be my impression. I'm curious what Nikolina will say to this topic.
Benjamin, exactly the same. I just wanted to say the first, yeah, exactly. You have to understand how things work, and effort is also very much appreciated in Austria. But the first time you need to understand and do the things correctly. So yeah, I could just confirm what you said. Also from my perspective, from cultural researchers, and from just experiences that I had, and from other internationals here. Yeah, this is how it is. I don't know, Chris, do you confirm
Totally
this?
can only confirm it. Yes, you're both totally right. That is how it is.
All right. Let's move a bit towards work, flexibility, and where experts overestimate the choice. The question is, where do experts think they're flexible and Austria already disagrees? We've all heard, I'll just try this job. I'll freelance a bit. I'll figure it out later. Or it's perfectly reasonable. Just not always here. So, Benjamin, through your lens, where do experts believe they have flexibility around work, but legally they don't?
Yeah, so my experience, our experience is that experts really don't know about and understand the Austrian system of self-employment, which is normal because it is a strange and complicated system. And they usually come from places where you just are a freelancer, just like this, so you register relatively quickly. And this whole system that you have 3 different types and lots of different rules is very confusing. But actually, then when you realize how to do it, it's actually not so hard. So there's this first step where they think it should be super easy, and then you explain them, no, it's not that easy, and then they get scared away and don't try it. But actually, once you understand it or you have good support, it's not so hard. But you need to just understand it and do it right. So this is one of the main things about especially being self-employed in Austria. Now, I also know, and I'm just saying this, there are people, of course, who are digital nomads who maybe have a business registered elsewhere and just live in Austria, and for a little while you can do that. But for tax reasons, and also especially social security reasons and long-term stability reasons, you shouldn't be doing this over a longer period of time. You should really be careful here. So there is maybe a bit of a transition period at the beginning, but then you should figure it out and do it correctly if you really want to stay permanently in Austria. That's one of the main things I would say.
Nikolina, you are more confronted with the workplace reality.
Mhm.
Yeah. How does this or that mismatch around flexibility of work and legally compliance play out inside teams or with employers, even when nobody talks about permits directly?
Yeah. I just want to distinguish here. Also, I want to add something about freelancing and self-employment, as you can remember. And last month or this month, at the event, we had the exact topic, self-employment for internationals, where I brought experts on like business consultant to help internationals set up the businesses in Austria. It's extremely complicated and complex system, and people are not aware of what does it mean to start a career as a freelancer or self-employed here. So this is what I wanted to show them and make them aware that they need to be informed and connect them with real experts. And also but show them this is also a career possibility if they choose Austria, Vienna as their country to work and live abroad. There are possibilities, like alternative career possibilities, being self-employed. The other thing is that when we talk about expats who are deployed for a few years and entering the workplace, versus international professionals who decide to work, who come to work for Austria as a full-time employees. And the first, I would say, mistake in this international recruiting is bringing experts at the workplaces without preparing them for what's coming. It's a business culture and workplace culture. And entering into multicultural teams brings some challenges. And this is really my main focus, to prepare internationals who come here for work. After setting the paperwork and finding the job, it's enough excitement and moving countries and then entering the new workplace. Entering new workplace in a new country means that you're gonna experience cultural challenges, cultural differences, let's say in communication styles, evaluation, giving feedback, receiving feedback, understanding it correctly, in communicating with your teammates, and just understanding how work works here. What are you expected to do? What are the right behavior? What are expected behavior? How do you manage a meeting? How do you stand out? Do you brainstorm? Do you follow protocol agenda? This is a really important topic, just to take off the conflicts, potential misunderstandings, and frustrations, because international professionals are there to perform, but usually they are not prepared to perform on the right side. Just to give them the right information to focus on their work and not to focus on decoding cultural codes in the new workplace. So this is what could employer do to prepare them better, or to arrange a support to prepare them to perform and not to survive at a new working environment. So this is crucial to know.
Here I have one point, Nikolina. What is here your experience? For example, on my side, I've worked for a French company before, and I was very often in Paris, and we had some meetings. For example, at 10 o'clock, I have the meeting with the management. I was there. Of course, I'm from Austria. I was there at 9:55, so 5 minutes earlier. I was waiting 10 minutes after 10, nobody was here. They were coming like 10:15, and it was completely normal. But for me, as a guy from Austria, it is normal to be on time. So I think that is also such a shock sometimes then for expats when they're coming to Austria, and see also on the timing side. What is here your experience on that?
Exactly. This is a time perception component of cultures. Of course, from your perspective, from your point of view of your culture, they are like late. They are maybe chaotic. Yeah. So you are early. You meaning on time. What does it mean to be on time? For certain cultures, it means just to be in a window of 30 minutes. Yeah. For some of them, it's be like if you are at 10, if meeting isn't it's 10 o'clock, if you're at 10, then you're already late. You should be earlier, right? So that you are prepared. And this is also what's really important when you are working on a projects and deadlines, how the cultures are, is a monochrome culture or polychronic cultures, how do they see, do they, how do you need to you need to watch out how to set the deadlines, how to work with multicultural teams. Do they do one thing at a time or multiple, like multitasking in deadlines in projects? So this is also that you need to be aware. And exactly, maybe for you they were like late, but maybe for other cultures, maybe for Spain they were on time, etc. So it is a bit your perspective or from your point of view, having from cultural relativism, to know how things work for different teams and multicultural teams. It's a different set of behaviors, because not only we bring our skill set at the workplace, we also bring our behaviors, values, attitudes. They were brought to us during our lifetime. So this is also then, and sometimes it is very important for team leaders to know that there are like team building activities for diversity teams, and just to bring that to awareness, and then just to know, maybe you are not like maybe lazy, you're just thinking, you're just seeing things differently. And this is something helps, sometimes very helpful to know that some of your colleagues, this is something that's their normal value, that's normal behavior. It's not they are weird or different. Yeah, it's just your point of view from your culture.
Yeah, and I think that this is a topic that can be also easily be solved if it tends to become an issue. First, if you don't take it personally, and second, if you communicate openly. If you are under the impression that one or the other colleague are, not responding as you would expect based on your perspective, then I think that the best approach is to openly, genuinely, and really kind communicate with them, asking them, telling them, not just, putting a label.
Absolutely. In international teams, communication needs to be explicit. So you have to communicate your expectations and set them up and communicate. That's the main thing. Communicate your expectations, because you're not in that comfort zone that you know everybody gonna react or behave on the way that you expect. Already mentioned, we all bring our set of our behaviors and skill set, but you have to communicate your expectations. That's the main thing.
On this point, maybe I can add something. Something we notice a lot is the whole topic of language. Okay, we work with a immigration researcher who once said in a big interview something like, "This country has a German fetish." There is a bit of a weird idea in Austria that everyone needs to speak German for things to work. But then actually, interestingly, in a lot of rankings, Austrians understand English really well. But there is this kind of, in the hiring procedures, or also sometimes in internal business procedures, there's still this opinion, only if you speak German really well, you kind of understand what's going on, and otherwise we don't know if this will work out. So how should I, like, obviously a lot of experts, they will simply not speak German on that higher level. It always helps to speak it, and I would definitely recommend them to learn it, but it's a hard language, you have a lot going on. So I think managing this in a reasonable way to kind of show effort in German, but then also kindly ask, do you think, guys, would it be okay to speak in, if I speak in English, I listen to you guys in German, I understand, but it's easier for me to express myself in English. These are things that are actually often pretty okay for Austrians, but kind of, you need to verbalize it. You need to communicate it, as Nikolina says, because otherwise you're super stressed. We had experts who were super stressed to state their case at work in German, and they were really stressed. And actually, Austrians would have been fine to listening to them in English. They were just afraid of themselves speaking in English because they were so used to presenting their case in German. So listening and speaking is not the same thing always, or reading and writing. So yeah, I feel there can be bridges built that in Austria it's often a little bit, oh, how do we deal with that?
But a funny thing that I have observed, there are colleagues or friends of mine that are expats trying to express themselves in German. But then the Austrian colleagues, they are so excited about the fact that they can speak in English and exercise their English that they prefer to talk to them in English then. And there's, one tries to speak German to exercise his German skills, and the other one tries to speak in English to exercise his English skills.
That exists too. Yes, that exists too, funnily enough. Sometimes
Right.
people feel stressed, like at the Amt, they feel stressed that they have to speak German, and then in another place they want to. And so, yeah, I guess communication is the way to go, right, Nikolina? To kind of say in that moment, hey, for now, I would really like to try it in German, or I would really like to speak in English because da da da.
Definitely, you have to be clear on what you're trying to achieve, practicing your German, but why I often hear from internationals why they don't speak German in at the workplace, because they are not on that level. They cannot express themselves or negotiate. Negotiation or discussions or heated discussions in German. You have to hit a certain level of skill set, and that's why they switch to English. But also, I would also say, please avoid idioms, or even if you're using a common language English, because it can come to misunderstandings. So definitely language is one topic, communication styles, how to express, how to agree or disagree. Is it welcome to disagree during a meeting? There are so many factors and cultural categories for internationals who are coming to work, because we have to work, and we want to try, we want to get promoted, but understanding those differences is crucial to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Christopher, through your structure lens, when people move between employed, freelance, or just, in between models, what do they usually miss financially?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is not only the topic for expats, also for Austrian people, to say it like that. I try to be quick on that because I could talk about that, I think, half an hour at least. One thing, and I think the most important, is about pension contribution. So you can then choose how much, when you be self-employed, how much is the pension contribution. And most of the people say, I do it as less as possible because I think about that later. But as mentioned before, they are not thinking about that later. They just see the effect. What does that mean? So especially when you're self-employed, you need to think about that topic, how much you pay in the system and how much you do additionally. Another point is like paid sick leave and holidays. It's different when you're self-employed. You need to have that in mind. And there will be some time when you're self-employed where you are not earning any money. Other point about separation of accounts. It is essential to have two kind of accounts. One account for you on the private side, one account for your company. Also when you're like an Einzelunternehmen as well. And here tracking the profitability, really be here on track and see what's going on and think about that in the early stage and monitor that. That is also crucial for your success. And make very strict saving rules. When the time is going good in your business, take profit out, invest it, have it for the long term, because time can change quickly, and then it is essential to have reserves. Especially then, after 3 years, you need to pay more on the social security side. You have then some tax payments. So build your reserves. That is, I think, the most crucial thing. And especially after 3 years, that is like so essential timing point where you need to have reserves for paying social security. And do here in advance some automations on the investment side. and have in mind about risk management as well. You have an income when you're self-employed, but that is most of the time variable. So it is different when you are employed. You have your normal income. Sometimes you have a bonus. When you're self-employed, it's going up and down. Make here reserves when it's going up, that you can also live when the income is lower. Yeah, I think that are the most important points, saying very quickly, but as I said, I could talk about that very long. And that's not only a topic for expats, more for expats, but also for people here from Austria to think about that and to be aware what they need to look at.
I have an additional question to what you have said, Chris. You said Einzelunternehmen. Einzelunternehmen is the same thing with Freigewerbe? Or it's a different thing?
Freigewerbe is something a different kind of way. So you have different Gewerbes in Austria. Some of them are Freigewerbe, so you don't need to have an additional exam. For example, I just say now as financial advisor, what I am, that is a reglementiertes Gewerbe. So you need here a special license that you are allowed to do that. Some other things are Freigewerbe, so you can just say, I want to do that, and you just go to an Amt and say, I want to do that, and then you have access to it. So that's a little bit different. Einzelunternehmen means you are one person and you are working as financial advisor, as consultant, or whatever you want.
Just to add something, we can differentiate from an EPU, ein Personenunternehmen, or GmbH, so these are categories that you decide you're going to work alone, you're going to work with somebody, you're going to pair up and have association and divided, I would say, responsibilities. So there are a few categories of how can you register your business
As a freelance, let's say.
Yeah, as a freelancer. And it depends on a topic, on activity that you do, that you provide, services that you provide. Then you need a registered business with a licensed business or license-free business. So Freigewerbe, reglementiertes Gewerbe. So these are two categories. What you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, alone or with somebody.
And then to add a further point of confusion, you can also be neue Selbstständige, which is the third category. This is why I'm saying people getting started with this are like, what? Yes, it is. If you go a little bit into it, it does kind of make sense, and you can figure it out, but you just need to be aware. And one thing that trips up almost everyone, Austrians, but even more so expats, is the whole SVS, the insurance situation. So self-employed people have to pay, of course, health and pension insurance and accident insurance. That's calculated in a not very intuitive way, I would say, because you can either pay ahead or you pay it later, and then it gets adjusted. But basically, it can happen to you that in your second or third year, you get huge back payments suddenly, and you didn't make provisions for this, maybe, as Christopher said, and then you get really very frustrated. So this is one of the main things that lots of experts we talk to faced. So yeah, to plan ahead for that is super important. It's not actually the taxes that are the most problematic part, but it's social insurance. And this totally you really need to have figured out.
Yeah.
One more question before we go to, let's say, the next important topic of our discussion. Many experts say, I'll just try this role, for example, Freigewerbe, or I'll just try Einzelunternehmen, or I will just be an employee and see what happens. Is trying a neutral signal in Austria? Or what's this kind of thinking? What is this triggering?
I just start very quickly about that. It's not the right way to just I tried. Really think about it in advance. What makes sense? What do I want to have middle long term? Does that make sense? Because changing it afterwards costs time, costs money, makes it much more complicated. So think first of all, what is your aim with the business? What do you want to have? And then talk to somebody who knows, who can help you on that side, and then make the decision.
And also maybe, I mean, two things that we notice. First of all, a lot of expats confuse setting up a company and becoming self-employed, because it's not quite the same thing. And in some countries it is more similar, but it's not. And you can even do both. You can set up a company and be self-employed. So people need to simply differentiate that process. And also the other thing is, there are actually, I mean, of course we can support, Nikolina, Christopher, me, like my paperwork, but there are also free advice sessions, the BKO, the Wirtschaftskammer, so they actually do good stuff, and you can go there first. They will advise you, they put you on a certain track, and then in the next stages you will probably want professional help. But to get the overview, there are good free institutions in Austria. You're not alone, but you need to go there kind of and have the courage to get started with it.
Are those free services or sessions, are those in English too?
Mostly in German, but some, if you ask, especially in Vienna, but even sometimes in other places, and you say, oh, please, I'm not sure, do you have maybe someone? Actually, interestingly, often English is one option. Sometimes they even speak things like, Turkish, Bosnian, Serbian, Croatian, because simply the workers themselves have maybe migration background. So even that is possible sometimes.
Just ask for it. Ask for it in advance. It can may then take longer to get an appointment, but English, normally should work out, and we'll use that kind of service. That is very helpful. That is what we have here in Austria, and as Benjamin mentioned, it is for free. So, and for the beginning, it makes sense. If you then make a deeper dive, it makes maybe sense to go really to an expert who is on that field.
Yeah, and once you are self-employed, you will be contributions to that institution. So, use their services because you will finance it.
I would also like to mention Vienna Business Agency. Go there. So there are also sessions in English. You can visit the website, and and for startups, businesses. I mean, for startups now in May is going to be a big international festival here in Vienna by Vienna Business Agency, Vienna Up. So just it's a free. There are free events, but there are also with tickets. But it's worth to see, to explore your options, because career opportunities here are various, and you can either decide. You have to also be a personality to start a company. If you are entrepreneurial type, there also is a checklist for that to see what directions you're gonna enter. Either you're gonna enter a company, you're gonna start your business as a solo entrepreneur or startup. There are many options, but also you should get advice from experts there. And there are also free consultations,
Let's move slowly but surely to the block related to career decision that lock people in without them noticing. In Austria, the system assumes continuity, as we discussed. If you don't actively interrupt it, it locks you in sometimes. And sometimes it's better that you keep those steps very well planned and assumed. There's also a zone in these career decisions where things become less forgiving. Until now, we've looked at how experts can misread or can make assumptions. But some decisions don't just create friction, they create direction. Sometimes choices that feel temporary become permanent. You come here for just a few years, and then, as the things go, you just go with the flow and you decide to stay here. And there are also some changes that one can make in his expat life that feel temporary for he or she, himself, herself, but the system treats those decisions as permanent. So, Christopher, I will come back again to you. Let's start with something that looks harmless, a small career move. Yeah, we talked about freelance or employee in one company, a temporary setup, a decision that doesn't feel strategic. When advising experts, which career and investment decisions look small but creates long-term consequences? We talked about SVS, Angestellte, so please just feel free to detail a bit here.
I go again about investing a little bit on that side because I see that on a daily basis. I have it with prospects here. They want to choose more the flexibility over structure. And I say here, when experts are telling me, I don't know how long I will stay here, I don't want to commit to something now, let's think about that later. But there is the delay then on investing, on pension planning, on insurance decisions, which have a huge impact then, especially on investing, what I mentioned already, like if you lose the time, you lose such a huge amount of money. So you can also do investing on a flexible side if you do it in the right way. Retirement planning, of course, that is more on the long term. But here to get more a picture out of it, how does it work? And which effect does it have if I start now? And which effect does it have when I leave the country in a few years? Just talk about it and don't think, I don't need it now. I think in the future about it. And last topic here about insurances. Here it is. Just go for it at the beginning. Don't wait for it. The risk is most of the time too high not being insured than saying, I don't know if I need it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. If you're moving out, most of the time you can quit the insurance. It is possible. You're not losing anything. But don't wait here too long. And here, and that is especially our topic at Invest Expat, we need to advise our clients completely different than Austrian clients because they have different kind of needs. They need a different kind of flexibility. And I don't do the same investment style, the same portfolio with an expert who doesn't know if he's here in 5 years or not, or with an Austrian girl or woman who knows she will stay here for the next 50 years. But here you need somebody who is taking care of it and think about it and go through the different scenarios. And don't say, I will do it later. And that is what I see here really on a daily basis, which has then very negative consequence in the long term.
Benjamin, I will switch to you just to do a system check. At what point does that decision become administratively hard or impossible to reverse? When does, when is the point where Austria quietly freezes options for expats?
Well, one point, of course, is the whole pension thing. How many years you need to actually get a pension? That's pretty important. Another one is, as I mentioned before, if I'm self-employed, you need to pay insurance, and this is basically, if you don't pay it up front, you kind of accrue debts. And this is, if we always say the social insurance is the one that will sue you if you don't pay, so you really need to pay them. They're tougher than the Finanzamt and the financial authorities and so on. So you really need to be on top of that. So these are the two major things that come to mind. Otherwise, where it will freeze you in, well, I mean, when it comes to permits, we mentioned this last time a little bit, but having gaps is a big problem. Having gaps in insurance, having gaps in your residence permit that's valid, that's a huge problem, because everything that follows later, when you were here on a red card and a red plus card, and then you want to move up to EU permanent residency or maybe citizenship. But if you have a gap of even a few months, suddenly all those years don't count and you start from zero, which is very frustrating. And actually it happens quite a lot of what what a lot of people struggle with that, who sometimes they study here, so they're on a student visa, and then sometimes they want to work for an international organizations because Vienna has many of them, and international organizations, they offer things that are called Legitimationskarte, legitimation card. But these cards are not cards according to Austrian residence law. So it can happen that you can stay in the country, but you basically lose your officially accumulated years in the residence law. And then when you switch back, because often these jobs are just, like 9 months or 10 months or whatever, then you start from zero again. But actually you can have it both in parallel. So there's like, fine points that you really need to figure out before you switch, because otherwise afterwards you learn, oh my God, now I've been here 5 years, but I start from zero again, and you just don't want to do that.
All right. This will be very frustrating. It will come with pain. Yeah. In terms of money and of time.
And usually very often there's a way to deal with that, to go around that, but you need to be aware of it and kind of apply early enough, because the authorities will not tell you, like they are often neutral, quite competent, like they're not mean to you, but they will not tell you, oh, by the way, if you now switch to Legitimationskarte, you lose your years for the permanent residency. They're not thinking in that way. It's also kind of not their mandate to tell you what to do, right? Because then they would be advising you, and that's not their role. You need to know what you want.
But maybe they are not doing this also because they are kind of structured in silos, and I'm not meaning it, in a badly manner, but each authority has its, let's say, jurisdiction, its responsibilities, and sometimes they are not really communicating with each other in terms of, advising someone that it's new and doesn't know which path he or she should take.
Yeah, that is definitely true. But also that's part of it, and part of it is also that they don't see it as their role to advise people in that sense. Even though they will, that's actually something I can take a little bit fear away. If sometimes something is missing for your application or so on, they will request it. Okay, they will not just reject it because it's missing. They will request it even several times. They are not intentionally mean or so, but they will kind of process the thing that you apply for, and then when you later realize, oh, that's actually not so good for me, you cannot expect them to tell you that, or to point out, hey, watch out, this or that. I mean, this is what we are here for, or this is what your networks and events and all of this is here for, or maybe also a session at the WKO, but it will not happen at the authority itself. But one thing that, because you said they're in silos, we apply with many Ukrainians, and they need to prove that they've been insured for at least 12 months. This is something the IMS confirms, and the MR35 asks the IMS, okay, is it true? Did it happen? Were they insured? And then the IMS regularly asks them, where is your permit to work in Austria? And we are always like flabbergasted, because Ukrainians who apply for this by definition have the blue card. It's not possible to not have it, and we always they always hand it in, but they don't pass it on, so the IMS asks again, and you can be really confused about that, but actually you should just send it again and say, here it is, and it's totally fine. But people get really worried in that moment.
I just need to jump in here, Benjamin. You mentioned the legitimation card, and that is also such a topic, because we have a lot of clients with a legitimation card, and you have also here such benefits on the tax side. That is also what we are discussing with them. If you do it in the right way, you could make a portfolio tax-free. So you can invest. You're not only having your salary tax-free, also you can do some investments which are then tax-free. So you save 27.5% on capital gain tax as long as you have the card. And that is what a lot of people with this legitimation card even don't know. And that is where we are assisting here, building up the portfolio in the right way. And yeah, that's a huge, huge, huge benefit. Just need to mention, because you said legitimation card, and that is just the knowledge is missing here from a lot of people also.
Exactly. Totally. And here you see, you can have benefits on the tax side, you should use them. On the other hand, it has implications for your residence for the longer term, which you should be aware of. So it's just it's different systems that you need to kind of plug into and be like, okay, this is the residency track, this is the tax and insurance pension track, and then this is the integration track. What does it mean for me to go to these places and feel communicate with them?
Right, and you should be aware of all of that, and also of the trade-offs before you take a decision. You have to have the full clear picture, and one cannot get by just clicking on the websites from the authorities, because it's not that easy to make all the connections. That's why you guys are here to support making all those connections. Nikolina, one question for you. Why do people keep making these decisions even if they are warned not to take them?
Well, it depends on their basic motivation, and if they think Austria has a clear system and strong system, and people believe in the institutions, and basically they, if something were risky, the system would clearly warn me. Yeah, but it assumes that the system assumes that the individuals are informed and capable of making structured long-term decisions themselves. So it's gonna pop like urgency if there is a need to, like you mentioned, Benjamin, to provide something. Yeah. Otherwise, you will have to understand the system, and decisions are maybe also motivated by your question: am I going to stay here? Do I want to integrate long term, or just understand this what I need to understand here? If you treat this temporary Vienna phase as career experiment or transition, then you're gonna postpone some structural decisions about career positioning or long-term workplace integration, and that is gonna like define your next steps and how you perceive the system. I would say make most of it, because once you are here, you want to understand how things work here. You want to thrive, you want to perform, and you have to be and kind of going to the long-term integration. What does it take is to find your community, understand the system, get the right paperwork, and of course put your cultural lenses to know how to behave. Once you understand all of this, you can thrive. You can make most of it. You can have all of it, all the benefits of the system that the Austrian system provides you. So that would be my like a point of view. If the question is, am I staying here or not? But do your best. Once you are here, you don't know you're going to fall in love in Vienna and the whole system and the cultural and the openness and opportunities. And for that, it would be great if your employer would support you on that journey by providing long-term integration, providing better employee engagement from the start and during the whole onboarding process. So then it could help you to make your decision quicker, because as we are facing now the shortage of skilled labor in Europe, in Austria, it's going to be even more and more due to demographical change. One of the goals is also to retain those talents, and so there's a few steps to have in mind for their onboarding integration process to keep them here. So we can do it, but still we need to provide them that support and to help them understand how things work here, life and workplace.
Right. One last question for all of you, because we have 2 minutes left. What's more harmful here in Vienna, in Austria? Moving too fast or staying undecided too long?
Well, that's not easy. I think staying undecided is the bigger issue, especially if important decisions are ahead of you. Like if the residence decision has to be kind of made and is running out, you really need to be clear about it. If there is job whatever you are in a job, or it's somehow changing, or you're maybe self-employed but you're not sure if you want to continue, just waiting is the worst option in these cases. Like getting clarity quickly is really important. You shouldn't be hasty. You should be well informed, but don't wait, because these things don't solve themselves, but they are inherently solvable. They're really solvable. You shouldn't be afraid of it. A lot of people, I think, are afraid of facing them, but they're solvable. That's my view.
Right. Would you, Nikolina or Chris, like to add something?
I would also
Or-
like to mention, it's positioning, career positioning is very important. It reflects reliability, builds trust, and helps you to integrate better in a team and in the new work environment.
Here, I have to say quickly, on the insurance side, make the decision very quickly. On the investment side, think about it, make a decision, but put in more the flexibility. On the retirement planning, you have to do it in the right way with the right flexibility if you move away. To do it in a structured way, but don't say, I will do it later, because then you do it never, and then it's too late.
And with this being said, thank you everyone for being with us today. Thank you, Nikolina. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Christopher. What we've seen today is that Austria works, and it works well when you understand how it reads your decision and when you understand how to read the system. Clarity makes everything easier later. And remember, next week on Thursday, same hour, next session. Your salary is not your income, and your pension is already being decided. We'll look at how this shows up in money and how to make it work for you from the start. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
See you next
Bye.
See
week.
you.